The film begins at the house of the millionaire Tex-Max, who is hosting an extravagant party. At a certain moment, he goes to his bedroom and grabs a rifle to have fun, causing discomfort among the guests. Tex fires a few shots into the air, frightening people who immediately want to leave. He demands that everyone stay, promises a good amount of money, and even invites one of the women to go upstairs with him. At the same time, a group of criminals heads toward the mansion with the objective of stealing his cryptocurrencies. The team is made up of Hector, his partner Ronan, and Bobby, the technology specialist. Upon arriving at the property, Hector tells the security guard that they are plumbers and were called to fix a problem in the pipes. The guard decides to trust the story and allows the men to enter. In parallel, we meet the young police officer Charlotte Briggs, who is on patrol with her partner Miller when dispatch informs them that a driver is having trouble on the road and that their patrol car is the closest unit. Charlotte tries to refuse, since the mentioned location is still far away, but dispatch insists that they handle the call. She agrees, and the two head toward the man, finding him stopped on the road. Charlotte approaches and wakes the driver, informing him that she will take him to the hospital. The pair perform a breathalyzer test and confirm that he is intoxicated. The man states that it is not necessary to take him, since he is fine, but Charlotte makes it clear that the options are going to the hospital or being arrested. Nearby, undercover officers Scott and Matthias attempt to capture some drug dealers. They begin the negotiation, hand over the money, and after the amount is checked, the criminals pass along the merchandise. When the suspects prepare to leave the place, one of the plainclothes agents gives the signal, and several other officers appear to carry out the arrest. An intense shootout begins, in which some bandits are killed and others end up captured. Back to the group of thieves, they go up to the second floor, and Bobby, along with Ronan, enters Tex's office. Bobby accesses the computer and begins transferring the cryptocurrencies. Tex is still in the bedroom with the woman, and after failing to have relations with her, decides to dismiss her. Meanwhile, Bobby struggles to divert the money and considers giving up on the plan. However, Ronan decides to pressure him, pointing the gun at his head and forcing him to continue. Outside, Tex leaves the bedroom and, furious, asks what Hector is doing in his office. Hector quickly punches him, knocking him unconscious, and drags him into the room. After further attempts, Bobby finally manages to hack the system and transfer Tex's cryptos. After completing the transfer, they begin to leave the mansion, but are intercepted by the security guard. They lie, saying they have finished the job, and manage to leave the house. However, Tex appears outside armed and starts a shootout. During the exchange of fire, Bobby is hit by the guard. Hector helps him into the car, while Ronan continues shooting and manages to kill Tex. The criminals quickly get into the vehicle and begin their escape, celebrating for now being rich. Despite this, Bobby is seriously injured, but Hector asks him not to worry, promising to take him to someone who can help him, although they need to be patient. Ronan then says he knows a hideout in the desert and instructs Hector to turn onto the next highway. Meanwhile, Charlotte and her partner prepare to transport the detained man when dispatch informs them about the criminal's escape and requests backup from all units. Charlotte's partner decides to answer the call and chooses to leave the suspect behind. The officers follow in pursuit of the fugitives and receive information about the vehicle used in the escape. At a certain moment, the criminal's car passes by the patrol car, and Charlotte quickly recognizes it. She asks her partner to turn around, and the two begin a chase. They decide not to stop and open fire on the officers. Charlotte returns fire and continues the pursuit. Her partner requests support immediately, and the officers from the operation, Scott and Matthias, hear the call over the radio and move to provide support. The chase continues at high speed, advancing deeper into the desert along a dirt road. The other patrol cars approach, and Scott claims to know a shortcut, accelerating to intercept them. They manage to catch up with the criminals and start shooting, forcing the vehicle to stop. Surrounded, the fugitives get out of the car and begin an intense confrontation. Hector throws a bomb at the police car, managing to create space for them to escape again. Seizing the moment, they help Bobby continue the escape with them. The group runs into an abandoned mine, and the police arrive shortly after, entering behind them. Charlotte decides to go in first, and her companions soon follow her into the mine. The criminals continue advancing through the tunnels, but Hector is already exhausted from carrying Bobby. They decide to stop for a few moments to rest. Bobby is badly wounded, and the two try to keep him conscious, encouraging him to resist. Shortly after, they realize he has not survived. Hector takes the pen drive and prepares to move forward. However, they are surprised by the police, who order them to drop their weapons. Hector states that he will not return to prison, lights another bomb and throws it at the agents. With the explosion, the entrance to the mine is sealed, leaving everyone trapped inside. A rock falls on Ronan's legs, while Miller, Charlotte's partner, is also seriously injured. The officers run to help him, and the most experienced agent states that they need to find another exit. At the same time, Hector tries to free Ronan, but the rock is too heavy and he cannot move it. Suddenly, an intense red light appears inside the cave, and intrigued, Hector decides to investigate. Ronan begs him not to abandon him, but Hector assures him that he will only check what it is. Charlotte tries to keep Miller conscious, but he does not survive his injuries and dies. She struggles to accept the loss and, desperate, tries to revive him, but her colleagues state that it is too late and reinforce that they need to find a way out. They try to use the radio, but there is no signal at all in the place, only static. Meanwhile, Hector finds a mysterious room equipped with a panel and a speaker box. Ronan, overcome by despair, starts screaming for help, and his screams echo through the tunnels, being heard by the officers. They decide to investigate, manage to locate Ronan and quickly subdue him. At that moment, Hector, who was rummaging through the drawers of the room, hears a loud noise behind him and is startled. Terrified, he asks who is there and warns that he is armed, backing away slowly. Furious, Charlotte orders him to get up, but Ronan replies that he cannot. She blames him for her friend's death and strikes him with the gun, then pointing it at his head. Matthias asks her to lower the weapon, while Scott shows support and tells her to shoot. Matthias states that he understands her anger, but reminds her that she must still uphold the law, finally convincing her to step back. Back to Hector, he finds another room equipped with a camera and a civil defense warning being broadcast over the radio. Irritated, he demands that whoever is behind the camera appear and show his face. He continues complaining when he again hears a noise and goes on alert. At the same time, Charlotte enters the room looking for Hector, but the lights suddenly go out. She turns on a flashlight, but mysteriously the light fails, leaving her apprehensive. Matthias and Scott continue interrogating Ronan and discover that Hector went in the same direction as Charlotte. Worried, Scott asks Matthias to go after her while he remains responsible for the suspect, and Matthias agrees. Hector continues challenging whoever is behind the camera when a voice announces the decontamination protocol. Upon hearing this, he panics, says he was joking, and smoke begins to be released into the room. Hector tries to escape, but realizes the door is locked and understands that the place is in fact a gas chamber. He screams in pain as the corrosive smoke consumes his body, succumbing to the effects of the chemical agent. Power returns to the room where Charlotte is, and Matthias arrives at that moment. She comments that all of this is strange, and he agrees, stating that the place does not look like a normal mine. Charlotte then suggests that it might be an old anti-missile bunker. As they talk, the same voice from before begins communicating through her radio. Charlotte asks who is behind all of it, but only hears the information that an American city was hit by an atomic bomb. Without getting answers, the transmission is interrupted by Ronan's screams. Matthias decides to check the situation and, upon arriving, finds Scott pressing the rock against the man. Scott claims he was only punishing him for killing a colleague, but Matthias opposes the action. He decides to help him get out from under the rock and asks for Scott's assistance, who reluctantly ends up cooperating. After some effort, they manage to free him. At that moment, Charlotte hears a noise and decides to investigate. Matthias shares his partner's theory, saying that the place may really be a bunker, and that perhaps there is an exit through the upper part. Scott asks what they will do with the prisoner, and Matthias replies that they will have to carry him. Charlotte continues advancing and finds another area of the bunker. Upon looking at the floor, she notices blood seeping from under a door, which intrigues her. Shortly after, the others arrive at the place and call for Charlotte, who informs them that she is in the next room. Upon entering, Matthias asks if she found anything, and she shows the blood trail. Scott shows concern and says he would feel safer in the tunnels. Charlotte agrees, stating that it would be easier for a rescue team to find them there. Matthias considers that this may take days and that they do not have that time, needing to locate the emergency exit. Scott, still apprehensive, says that they are not alone and questions the noise on the radio. Matthias tries to calm him, suggesting it may have been just interference on the frequency. Scott does not believe the explanation, and at that moment, they hear a door closing. He runs to check. Matthias suggests it may have been just a gust of wind, but Scott returns warning that the door is sealed. Soon after, an old song echoes through the speakers, explaining the difference between communism and socialism, like a Cold War propaganda activated suddenly. The song is abruptly interrupted, and Matthias admits that it is strange. Charlotte states that someone is having fun at their expense. Scott then draws attention to a camera, and Charlotte demands to know who is behind it. A sinister voice echoes through the environment and asks where they came from. Charlotte responds that they are police officers from the city of Murano. Matthias acknowledges that the man values his privacy, but reminds him that they also do not want to be there and asks for help to get out. The sinister voice announces that there is no exit nor escape, leaving everyone frightened. Matthias warns that keeping police officers trapped is a very bad idea, but silence dominates the room. Ronan ironically says that the attempt to scare them failed miserably, and Matthias reprimands him. Charlotte asks them to pull themselves together and start planning a strategy. She asks Matthias what he thinks about the person who inhabits the place, and he comments that it could be a lonely psychopath who found the abandoned bunker and turned it into his own house of horrors. At that moment, several shots ring out, frightening them, and they soon realize it is Scott trying to open the door. They reprimand him, but he asks if they have a better idea. Matthias suggests that they remain where they are, since it is safer, but the group decides to look for the emergency exit and proceed together. As they search for the exit, Ronan tries to communicate with whoever is behind the camera, saying that he also does not like the police and asking if he saw a Mexican around. He comments that the man carries a pen drive with 30 million in cryptocurrency and that everything could be his if he were freed. Red lights turn on in the room, and Ronan believes he has gotten his attention. The decontamination protocol is activated again, and when they notice the smoke, everyone goes on alert. They run to the doors, manage to open them, but end up separating into teams. Charlotte stays with Matthias, and the two begin searching the place, finding another room. Matthias asks how that place still has power, and Charlotte explains that since it is something military, they may have used a reactor. They find some facility records, with the last entry on March 14, 1986. They decide to listen to the recording and discover that a group of people was forgotten there. The man reports that he sent several distress calls, but received no responses. Then they hear another recording, titled Project Iliad, dated 12 days after the first. The man introduces himself as Kevin Josephine, operations officer, and states that the entry date does not matter, insisting that they were left there to die. They change the tape again, and Kevin reports that supplies are running out, there is not enough food for everyone in the bunker, and that although everyone had already lost hope, a small blessing fell upon them. A recent bat infestation turned the animals into an essential food source. Kevin admits he does not know how they got in, but for now, they were welcome. When changing the tape, he reports that the bats are getting bigger and more aggressive, and that those who consumed them also suffer strange mutations. He confesses that he cannot properly describe the changes, only that they are no longer the same. Suddenly, the tape goes silent, until gunshots echo, and Kevin asks them to step back. Growls follow, and silence returns, but Charlotte and Matthias become apprehensive. Charlotte wants to get out of there, and he suggests they first look for Scott before moving. Meanwhile, Scott and Ronan find another room. Suddenly, a noise makes Scott turn around, and taking advantage of the distraction, Ronan grabs a hammer, strikes him, takes his gun, and quickly flees. He walks down a corridor, but is startled by footsteps and falls to the ground. The footsteps approach, and in panic he draws his gun to protect himself, while bat growls echo through the environment. Deciding that it is better to keep going, Ronan soon finds what is left of Hector. Terrified, he approaches and asks who did that, but Hector takes his last breath. Ronan laments the loss, but soon begins searching for the pen drive. As soon as he finds it, Hector opens his eyes and tries to attack him, and Ronan quickly fires at him. A new noise echoes, and even frightened, Ronan decides to investigate, asking what is going on. The voice communicates again, introducing himself as the supervisor. Ronan questions what his objective is, and the supervisor replies that he only wants to be left alone with his children. Confused, Ronan asks if there are children there, but the supervisor clarifies that his children are different. Growls echo through the speakers, and upon hearing them, Ronan states that he has no interest in meeting them. The supervisor laments, saying that they were also human, but now are only superior predators. Ronan asks why he is telling him that, and the supervisor replies that it is to show that humans have not evolved. Confused, Ronan says he does not understand, and the creature explains that he is an alpha hunter, a criminal who kills without reason, but understands why the police are after him. Ronan does not deny his nature, and the supervisor admits understanding, stating that he admires Ronan for accepting it. Again, Ronan tries to negotiate with the creature in exchange for the cryptocurrencies, but it shows no interest. He demands that the creature appear so he can see his face and understand who he is dealing with, and the supervisor replies that perhaps he will, but only when his experiment ends. Confused, Ronan asks what experiment that is, and the supervisor explains that he must survive the challenge and prove that he is worthy of further study or die as another obsolete life form. Suddenly, the lights go out, and some creatures emerge from the doors attacking him. Ronan fires at them, but after hitting some, he needs to flee to save his own life. Meanwhile, Scott begins to get up and hears voices through the speakers. Growls echo, and he grabs the hammer to protect himself, but is still attacked by the humanoid creatures. Matthias and Charlotte continue searching for their partner, and while searching, hear the door closing. Matthias comments that he wants them to follow that path, but irritated, Charlotte says that the game is over. Ahead, the lights turn on, and the supervisor announces that they are close. She asks close to what, but he only repeats that they are closer. The pair continues advancing, and Charlotte states that they did what he asked. The supervisor then proposes something. He would free one of them if either of them agreed to stay with him voluntarily. Matthias questions how they could trust that he would keep his promise, and the supervisor replies that he cannot guarantee it. With no other reasonable option, they realize that the only way is to accept the proposal. Charlotte states that there is no deal, but Matthias offers to stay. The supervisor, however, says that he needs a woman, as he already has a male specimen. She asks who it is, and the supervisor reveals that it is the criminal who shows great potential and that he needs her for new experiments. Matthias contests, saying that the deal is not valid, and asks for something more plausible. The supervisor agrees and orders his children to attack. They fire at the creatures, but are outnumbered, and Matthias is killed. Charlotte is hit in the stomach, but manages to eliminate the creature and runs to check on Matthias. At that moment, an old man appears behind her and asks her to follow him. She follows him to a hiding place and asks who he is. The man introduces himself as Tim Stanley, a soldier. Tim admits that he thought she was from the rescue team, but she denies it, saying that her colleagues will still try to save her. He states that no one will come and asks if she believes that place was forgotten. She confirms, and he emphasizes that they are buried but not forgotten. Intrigued, she asks who he really is, and Tim replies that he is nobody, which irritates Charlotte. He explains that he was recruited in military training at 19 years old, and in the first days did not understand much because he was a low-ranking soldier, but he soon realized that they had something in common. If something went wrong, no one would have family to look for them. Charlotte realizes that something did go wrong, and Tim reveals that no one came to save them, and they decided to bury them alive, the very government they swore to protect. She will also be declared dead, to discourage anyone who tries to look for her, claiming that she died in the mine collapse. Charlotte states that she will not accept that, and if necessary, will blow up the place to escape. Tim warns that that man will not allow it, and she responds that they will kill him too, if necessary. He reveals that it is Dr. Ulrich Schaefer, former director of the institution, and a relic from the time of Oppenheimer. Tim explains that Schaefer tried to develop a new type of bunker with artificial intelligence, equipped with a man-machine interface capable of seeing and hearing everything in the place. Charlotte observes that he can also see and hear them, but for some reason still keeps them alive. Tim admits that perhaps he is not seen as a threat, but emphasizes that she ends up becoming one. At that moment, they hear the sound of bats and prepare for a confrontation. As they advance, Tim explains that a shot to the head is enough to kill it. Soon, the creatures begin to appear. Charlotte reacts quickly and takes one down the way he taught her, and the two continue moving forward. Shortly after, they find Ronan. She orders him to drop the gun and asks about Scott. Ronan replies that he cannot explain exactly what happened, and she demands to know his role in all of that. He asks to leave that conversation for later, at least until they manage to get out of there alive. But she thinks it is better to arrest him, and the supervisor states that this alliance is good for both. He greets Tim and comments that he allied with the intruders, but Ronan, irritated, replies that they are not intruders, and that he just wants to get out of there. The supervisor says that their badges mean nothing down there, and that he can feel the frustration of not having been rescued. He assures that with him it would be different, and promises eternal life, just as he granted to his children. Charlotte replies that she already refuted that theory by killing them. The supervisor admits that she is right, thanks her for the challenge, and states that the time has come to meet personally, ordering them to move forward. A door opens and they quickly enter. There they find Schaefer's corpse connected to a computer. He appears on the screen and Charlotte questions what that is. Tim reveals that it is the Central and says that it may be an advantage for them, asking her to keep talking. The supervisor states that he was a strong man, but that his flesh was weak, and that his only alternative was to abandon the physical form. He asks her to transform like him, but she refuses. He says that he was dying, but managed to transfer his consciousness in time to the Central. He admits that he tried to return to a body, since mechanics still have limitations. He failed because there was no one left. His companions had transformed into sentinels when he blew up the main reactor. The explosion fused their cells, transforming them into humanoid creatures loyal to him. Only Tim remained, but his body was not suitable, and that is why he needed an appropriate host. He states that the two demonstrated impressive abilities and mentions something that Ronan does not understand. Charlotte explains that he wants a baby as a perfect host. She asks why he believed that would work, and the supervisor replies that he just needs to convince one of them. Charlotte then points the gun at Ronan, who says he would never do that. She does not believe it and warns that if he approaches, she will blow a hole in his head. The supervisor says that he already foresaw that and states that he knows how to be persuasive. Suddenly, the system begins to beep and he asks what Tim is doing. Tim replies that the time has come and explains that he managed to shut down the eyes and ears of the system, but the supervisor reacts too quickly. They need to flee. While trying to find an exit through the computer, Tim discovers something unexpected. The supervisor reveals that the government made a mistake. There were warheads in the bunker, but they were removed. However, he managed to preserve one. The temperature begins to rise, indicating detonation. Charlotte says it is a bluff, because that would also destroy him. He denies it and states that his circuits are protected by 40 feet of insulation. Tim still controls part of the system, but everything is overheating. Ronan thinks the supervisor is ahead, but Tim assures that there is still hope and asks them to follow him. On the way, Ronan is attacked. Charlotte kills the creature, but he is seriously wounded. Tim says that there are 30 seconds left before they are surrounded. Ronan asks for the gun to buy time, and she hands it over and continues with Tim while the countdown continues. They reach a room designed to withstand a nuclear explosion, but this time the explosion will come from inside. The supervisor admits that this harms him, since Tim sealed the center behind armored doors, exposing his circuits. Charlotte demands that he deactivate the bomb, but he replies that it is impossible. Tim tells her to hold on. The countdown ends and the bomb explodes. They manage to survive, and Charlotte's radio starts working again, and Tim celebrates, saying that the jammers were destroyed. She hands him the radio to inform their location to rescue. Hours later, they are finally taken out of there. Charlotte approaches Tim, and the two talk. An army officer approaches, and Tim comments that some things never change. She says that it does not matter anymore, and invites him to have a real coffee.